I've even played with the idea of renouncing my citizenship and getting something more in line with like Saint Kitts citizenship down in the Caribbean.
All right, everybody, Kris Krohn here. Welcome back to the Kris Krohn Show. And I've got the Anti.Prophet here. You know the guy, you've seen him online. He's got 1.7 million followers on YouTube. He's all over social. He has a lot of controversial thoughts and opinions. We're going to discuss all that today. But brother, I just got to start with this one. Is that mask comfortable to wear?
It is actually surprisingly. It gets kind of annoying after a few hours, but as long as it's like an hour or less, it's actually not too bad to wear.
Like, did you find this online somewhere? Or did you make this?
No, I found it online. This would be so annoying to to build. There's
I
so many
could,
different beads that would have to be sewed on.
yeah. So you're an American content creator that moved to Bali, and kind of curious, like, what inspired you to start producing content wearing a mask?
Honestly, it was originally born out of practicality. Originally, I was working for another content creator, and I knew that this was going to be something that he would prefer I do anonymously, just because I was essentially a COO for a very large creator. So, I wanted to kind of respect his brand in that way. But again, just on a practical level, I even tested some content with and without a mask. And with the mask, with the exact same script, I'd get like 11,000 views on a video versus 200 views on a video without. So either that means, I'm fuck ugly, but hopefully not, or people
Okay.
just seem to like the mask more.
So it's either that. So for you, it's actually a little bit more of a business strategy rather than remaining anonymous.
There is some value to the anonymity. However, the opinions that I come up with and share online are things that I would share with or without a mask. I think just practically, people seem to connect with the mask a lot more, and people seem to be able to absorb my messaging a lot easier than if I just was, some guy with a face talking into a camera. So.
Ethan, I starting tomorrow. I want you to go find me a really cool mask because I'd like to increase my viewership. No, that's cool, man. Thank you. So you've been creating content for a while. You talk about the red pill movement. You talk about also just leaving the matrix. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. In my mind, escaping the matrix has more to do with escaping the limitations that you kind of set for yourself inside of your own head, rather than escaping some sort of like banking cabal of like Jewish bankers, which is
Okay,
the way that I
okay.
think the majority of people sort of process that. I think most of the time, when we're trying to go out into the world, trying to get success for ourselves, the biggest thing that holds us back is ourselves.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, I think externalizing some sort of locus of control out into the world, as if it's some sort of like global banking system or like group of elites or something, it again, it externalizes the locus of control of your life in a way that you can't really control, you can't do anything about. So I think viewing the matrix as something that you create for yourself inside of here is
Yeah.
a lot more empowering, because it allows you to actually go and make decisions in life and make choices in life that allow you
Yeah.
to make your life happen. That's the only thing you have control over.
So
I think the reason I'm critical of red pill stuff is just because no real relationship researcher would purport the majority of the ideas that red pill kind of purports. You look at people like John and Julie Gottman, who have been studying successful relationships
mm,
for 30 or 40 years. I would much prefer to follow them rather than some guy who started a podcast 3 years because he saw a bunch of angry men online that he knew he could make money from. So uh, that's the reason I'm critical of it.
got it. So this whole idea of the matrix kind of interesting. I created my own name for the muggles, for the people out
Mm.
there that are sleepwalkers that are unconscious. I call them thick veils. And it's the people that
Okay.
it's almost like they just haven't woken up to life. They haven't figured out that they can manifest their own destiny. It's almost like they're trapped in their own mind with, whatever they were given in childhood. And it's like, man, wake up and like live your life. I look at you and I'm like, okay, that takes some balls to leave a country like America, move to Bali, and kind of set up shop as a life out there for you. You're definitely doing your own thing. Kind of curious, have you always felt like you were out of the matrix, or was there a defining moment where you really felt like you were manifesting your own life's results?
Yeah, I think the moment that I like left the Matrix was probably with the moment I joined a cult when I was 17.
Oh,
So I joined a cult by the name of the Landmark Forum, and a cult is kind of like a
I know the
disingenuous way of
Landmark
describing.
Forum, their sister company, Great Life. I joined that cult
Okay.
for about 6 months.
Nice, nice, cool. Yeah. So I mean, look, Landmark Forum is a little wonky, and I was actually a part of it for a couple of years, kind of on and off.
Yeah,
And I think the deeper you get into it, the weirder it gets.
yeah,
But I think like their basic program, the Landmark Forum, is something that I took when I was 17. And when I was
yeah,
17, like I had gone to a new public school for the first time. I had gone to private school for like 10 years.
yeah,
With like my class was like 30 people and everyone knew each other. And then I jumped to this public school with like 1,200 people.
yeah,
And it was system overload for me. So I didn't talk to anyone for about a year and a half. And that was a really like lonely period of time. And,
yeah,
my sister was like, did the Landmark Forum and was like, oh my God, you need to do this. So I went and did their 3 day thing. And I came out and I was just I was I could have conversations with people a lot easier.
yeah,
I all of a sudden kind of had a vision for my life,
yeah,
in terms of what was possible. And I just started accomplishing a lot more. And again, I don't it's just like any good thing that you encounter
mm,
in life.
yeah,
It's good for that season in life.
yeah,
And I think the longer you adhere to certain ideologies as if it's like the
yeah.
only way, the longer it sort of wears its welcome. So I think if I was part of Landmark to this day, I'd probably be a little bit stunted. But for when I encountered it, it was really, really useful. So I think honestly, that's probably the moment that
Yeah.
that change happened.
So it's interesting when I went through Great Life. On the one hand, I went in, I could extract all of this valuable information and definitely some huge awakenings within different perspectives, seeing the
Mm,
world in new ways, and then also just getting out of my own way, just my especially with my ego. But at the
yeah,
same time, their methodology was interesting because there was a lot of teardown energy. The energy
yeah,
was, we're going to break you down. We're going to do ridiculous accountability, almost make you feel bad about yourself. But then if we build you back up, it does. It kind of creates a little bit of that cultish energy of like, this is my new family. Like, it was a little trippy. And I probably ran 30 people through that program and half of them never came back and never talked to me again. Just like, bro, that's too weird for
hmm
me. But it was actually my experience was actually pretty positive, but I didn't stay with it too long just because I didn't always agree with their methods. I did like a lot of the outcome though.
cool. Yeah, I'd say something similar. I think again, it's just the thing that sort of rang alarm bells for me originally was when I was like 22 or whatever, and I was still generally involved in this program. I just saw a bunch of like 45-year-olds who had like been there for years that I recognized from earlier,
Yeah.
and like their lives weren't any better than when I
Yeah.
first saw them like 5 years ago. So I was just like, okay, like there's obviously something to this that doesn't really serve you long term. So I got out, but it was useful. It was like the spark that I needed to kind of head
And
on the trajectory that
that
I
was the
ended
start
up.
of leaving the matrix for you. So like how have you continued living outside of the matrix? Like what does that mean for you for your life today when you compare yourself to what I call the thick veils or kind of people that are stuck in the societal game?
Yeah. Well, I think the reason I was stuck in the societal game was because of my desire to be consistent and because of the fact that I wanted to take care of the people around me, even though they didn't want to take care of me.
Mm.
My biggest change in life outside of the Landmark Forum, which was honestly pretty incidental, was when I was 28. I ended up uh, going through a divorce with my ex-wife. Within a year and a half, again, I got divorced. My father passed away, lost my house, lost my job to COVID, ended up living in my mom's basement, and COVID happened, like I said. So uh, a lot of things happened. I also lost like all of my major friendships, and sort of during that time, I don't know, something funny happens when you lose everything, and it's
Yeah.
not that you lose everything; it's that you actively choose to walk away from
Yeah.
all of it,
Yeah.
minus the job part with COVID. I didn't like walk away from that. That just happened. But yeah, when you actively walk away from a situation that you know is going to kill you if you stay in it for another 40 years, and it's just going to like result in you having zero life.
Yeah.
and zero happiness, you were kind of forced to figure out not only why you walked away in the first place, but why you stayed in the shitty situation that you did for as long as you did.
Yeah.
I think it's really easy to walk away from situations where people are treating you really poorly and just say, "Oh, well, it was just them. Like they treated me like this, and they're the monsters. Like I'm good, they're bad." But you can't really learn anything from that moving forward. If you take that mentality, you more than likely sort of ensure that that same exact thing is going to happen to you into the future. You have to
Mm.
figure out what your part was inside of any negative situation that you're in.
Yeah.
And I think just based on the fact that COVID was kind of going down, I mean, I had a year and a half to just really just sit in like a lot of pain and to try and sort of sift through.
Yeah.
Um, what had just happened to me. And luckily, because I had that amount of time, um, I had a lot of time to do that thinking and to,
Yeah.
just kind of get into reading some philosophy to try and like look to figure out some answers, to look to psychology to try and figure out some answers. And by the end of that, I was just like, oh, okay, like I see why this happened. I see how I can make sure that it doesn't happen to me again.
Mm.
And now I'm literally working from a clean slate. I'm extremely talented. I'm extremely disciplined. I've already demonstrated that in my previous career. So what could I put my energy towards that would get me better results and make me more money? And in this case, it was social media. I used to be a classical violinist before.
Yeah.
And that's a very difficult job
Sure.
to pick, just because the violin is a very difficult instrument. And at the peak of I don't know. It's just like when you go and get a doctorate in violin, for example, 10 years of collegiate training, you come out the other side, and the only thing that you're really eligible for is, working at a university for starting pay of like $42,000. So
Sure.
there's just not a lot of money to go around in classical music. So I had sort of dealt with that for the last couple of years, and I was like, okay, what can I do that pays a little bit better? And e-commerce and social media was the choice.
So this is interesting. You walked away. Sounds like you had a big burn down just between divorce, losing house, job, everything else. And then somehow you wind up in Bali. And even though Bali, I've been to Bali, it's a beautiful country. It's very inexpensive to live there, but you still have to have a job or make money. Like, was there a weird transition between social media picking up and then being in Bali and trying to figure out how, like, most people would say, I don't know how I'm going to make money and survive necessarily over there. Like, how did that transition work?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it was actually funny. There was no funny period in the middle. I got a job again working as a COO for a major influencer, managing his 15-person team, being a violinist previously.
Are you serious?
So
Wow.
yeah, 100%. So I came over here to do that, and yeah, I did that for about a year and a half, and then just kind of realized like how the wizard works behind the curtain, and decided I could probably do it for myself. And as a result, I did. But that being said, there are a lot of, in fact, the majority of people that are my age that are out here in Bali are freelancers. They're just freelancers in work that allows them to work remotely, whether that's in design or accounting or crypto or Facebook ads, any number of things. All these people
Yeah.
have their hustle. So it's not like everyone out here is like some superstar necessarily. It's just
Sure,
everyone's
sure.
kind of doing their freelance thing. And as a result, there are a lot of ways to kind of make this work, whether you do it through your own freelancing business or you do it through finding a remote job and working for JetBlue remotely and just working nighttime hours and living somewhere in the world where you pay a lot less in living expenses. There are a lot of ways to do it.
What share with me the unfiltered truth about daily life in Bali?
Uh my daily life or the life of people traveling.
You.
I'll give you both versions. When I first got here, I was an alcoholic, and Bali is really, really awesome if you're an alcoholic. There's just always something to do. The drinks are cheap. So in a setting like that, I'd go to work 9 to 5. After that, I'd meet up with some people at around like 6 or 7, stay out until about 4 a.m., go to bed, wake up at 8, and repeat it all over. I would do that about seven nights a week. So that was the previous version of how I sort of experienced Bali. And at this point, my general day is wake up at like 9:30, 10, uh, do a little bit of work, cook some breakfast for myself, do a little bit more work, go to the gym, come back, work until about 6 or 7, cook dinner for myself, uh, do more work until about 10 or 11, and then just like kind of vibe out with some YouTube videos. And on the weekends, go to a waterfall, go on a hike, go to the beach, maybe go to one of the surrounding islands just for like a weekend trip. That's pretty much all there is to it. It's really nice.
Yeah, so it sounds like you get to take an advantage of the beautiful country there, and it kind of seems like you have a little bit of a chill life, right? I mean, you're working on your own calendar, your own schedule, you're doing it your way, and sounds like it's enough to make it work.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's funny. Over the last month or so, I've sort of realized, again, I've been sober for about 18 months now. And I think for about 18 months, I've sort of been on ice. I kind of put myself on ice socially just because it was a big transition going from just partying all the time to being kind of very low, calm energy, which is my default state. Um, and I think just within the last month, I've started to think to myself, well, okay, well, it's been some time now. I'm kind of in a more like regulated place. I wonder what it would look like to start developing some hobbies, to start like going out again, to start meeting people, to start like even just building my Rolodex, just building
Yeah.
my network. So I'm starting to do more of that, and trying to kind of get out of the house instead of just working all the time. And luckily, the times that I have done it, it's actually been really great. It's weird getting back out there and talking to people again, but it's super awesome. I'm liking it.
I was checking out this house in Bali. It was like 350 US dollars a month, and it was fly. Like it was amazing. Like your
Mm.
lifestyle living out there, what are you paying a month for the kind of lifestyle that you have?
Yeah, so I have a two-bedroom villa in the middle of a really nice rice field, super far away from the road, in the center of like where everything happens here in Bali. And I pay, I think, $770 a month. Yeah.
Nice.
And then with food I could really do for like less than $300 a month if I really wanted to. But I'm currently doing carnivore diet, so it's
Okay.
more in the realm of like $730, I think. So all in, I'm certainly spending less than uh, you know
Do you,
$2,000. If I really needed to, I could spend less than $1,000 easy if I really
yeah.
needed to.
Do you have any desire to ever come back to America?
Not right now. That may be a possibility in the future. I've even played with the idea of renouncing my citizenship and getting something more in line with like Saint Kitts citizenship down in the Caribbean.
Yeah, you're telling
Just
people to
for
leave America. Like, what's motivating that?
the tax benefits and the cost of living and just getting out of the craziness. Um, yeah, I haven't fully decided one way or the other whether or not I'm gonna really go ham and renounce the citizenship.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I also on top of that just want to live in a country that I like genuinely believe in, and I think right now the main country that comes to mind is something like Singapore.
Yeah.
Singapore is a country that is extraordinarily successful, legitimately believes in like maintaining laws and maintaining order. And it is an example of a melting pot
Yeah.
between the Indian community, the Chinese community, and the Malay community. That just like it works.
Yeah.
It works. And Singapore is just focused on excellence. Like I would rather pay taxes to a government like that rather than the government that I pay taxes to now. But I don't know if I necessarily, again, want to jump ship or if I still believe in the
Yeah.
American experience on an ideological level to the extent that I would stay. So
Let's
I'm trying to figure that out.
let's talk about some of the crazy things happening in America. I mean, several days ago,
Mhm.
Donald Trump's attempted assassination on his life. Like, what do you make of that?
I am not surprised by it. I think it was shocking, but I don't think anyone was surprised by that really. I think the optics of him getting right back up and doing fight, fight, fight was pretty badass.
Yeah.
Um, but I think on both sides, the right. I'll kind of throw blame on both the right and the left. I think for a long time now, the right has tried to sort of move away from any level of responsibility around any of the political temperature rising over the last like 8 years,
Hmm.
and the left has pretty much done the same. So I think I don't know. It's not surprising to me that it
So,
happened.
so who would you actually vote for, Trump or Biden?
That's the hard one. I mean, look, I think Trump is super tight and hilarious. And I did a lot of reading in terms of like his actual policy inside of his first term, and while I do think he's like a terrible manager of people, or was, I liked his foreign policy when it came to South Korea at the beginning of his term. Like, just had he continued doing stuff at the beginning of his term and continued that throughout instead of just becoming psychotic and pitting his cabinet against each other, I think a lot of cool things would have happened. But unfortunately, that didn't end up happening. And I think that's further compounded with the issue of fake electorates, the issue with January 6th, and,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of thing. So that being said, I really have serious difficulty wanting to vote for status quo moving forward with a vote for Joe Biden. I think something that I would be more interested in is if the Democrats were to decide to do some sort of like a vice presidential election, because everyone knows that if Biden's not going to win at this point, but if he were to, he's going to be dead within the next 4 years just because of old age. And I think if they were to put forth someone more appealing than Kamala Harris and
Mm-hmm.
Gavin Newsom, if they could really find someone who was appealing and had like sensible policy, I think that would be something that people would be interested in, because a vote for Joe Biden would essentially be a vote for that vice president. So right now, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I was just thinking about this last night, and I don't know yet.
Got it. I've been actually interested just on social media. The algorithm is feeding me a ton of Democrats and liberals that are moving to vote for Trump. And
Hmm.
it's interesting. There's a lot of speculation on, wow, did Trump just win the election because he survived an assassination and showed strength instead of, the kind of weakness that we see with Biden?
It's done. It's like the election is done. I think that was like the most badass thing that any of us have seen probably in our lifetime.
Yep.
And I don't know. I think just being able to see something courageous play out in front of us when our entire society is centered around what is expedient and what is cowardly. I mean, it's something that unlocks something really deep inside of us that, yeah, Republican or Democrat, unless you're really just like following policy and really following like court cases and
Mhm.
that type of thing, you vote for it. It makes sense.
I was watching a video this morning of Donald Trump's first public appearance again at one of his next rallies, and the
Mm,
camera was on him for probably 4 or 5 minutes straight, and he had a shift in his countenance. To me, normally he comes
yeah.
across very egotistical, very pompous. A couple times his face looked flushed, like he was emotional and wanted to cry. And the way he greeted people and his eyes were soft. And I thought, wow, that is a very, very different look. Um, whatever he experienced, I think it changed him. I mean, had he not shifted his head just 2 inches in the other direction, there would be brain matter all over the pulpit. And so it's pretty wild. No, we definitely saw something super historic, and it's definitely going to have a huge impact on this election. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about just the fact that you're a controversial figure, right? I mean, you get a lot of hate, you get a lot of criticism. How do you deal with that? Or do you just even ignore it?
It's a good question. Yeah, I think at this point I've just learned to ignore it. The deeper I get into my comments, the more unhappy I become, honestly. I think especially, and it's funny though, the videos that I create about critiquing like trans issues or just any number of like liberal issues, I guess you could call them. I actually get very little hate. The topics that actually bring me the most hate when I critique them is Candace Owens. Whenever I critique Candace Owens,
Mhm.
my audience freaks the fuck out. Whenever I critique Christianity, my audience freaks the fuck out. And yeah, I don't know. I think as a result of that, it's just um, I don't know. People have a hard time kind of pinning down what it is that I believe, and I think as a result of that, they think that I don't believe anything, which is incorrect. But I think in order to deal with that, regardless of whether the criticism is coming from the right or the left, or from like pro Israel, pro Palestine, or whatever, I just I have to kind of disconnect, because I have other things in my life that I'm trying to optimize around to reach people in a positive way, and hopefully get them to make positive changes in their life. That's what I mostly care about,
That's what your
rather than
goal
my
overall
Instagram
is
comments.
is that the whole nature of being, provocative? Is it to basically get in people's face, wake them up, shake them a little bit, and give them something to think about?
Yeah, yeah. I think ultimately, I don't really care if I legitimately change a heart or mind on social media. My point of doing what it is that I do is to just give someone an opportunity to maybe rethink their position. And I think the demographic of people that I reach mostly are mostly conservatives, or maybe people center left as well. But I think it's probably center right and then a little bit farther right as well. I think that's the majority of my demographic. And if I can get them to, just reasonably take a step back, even if just for a few seconds, and sort of re-examine their positions, and even if they end up agreeing with their original assertions coming into my video, that's fine. But I think as a result of them taking a step back and examining their position, it gives them a chance to either internally or externally verbalize their arguments so that they have a deeper understanding of what it is that they actually believe, so that when they engage in conversation with other people, they have something intelligent to say and they can say it calmly
Yeah.
instead of just either panicking or starting to yell. And I think that's positive for discourse in any situation.
You talk about religion, you talk about relationships. When you look into your future, are there other topics, aside from politics, that you see yourself venturing into?
Yeah, I mean, I try and talk a lot about the realities of e-commerce as well, and like making money online, because there's a lot of bullshit out there. And I've worked in the space long enough that I'm a good sales copywriter. I know what the tactics are that marketers use to kind of get under your skin and try and sell you products, especially when it comes to this matrix messaging. So I try to post some stuff about that. I try and post things about like certain psychological truths that I find useful. I try and post things about relationships that are actually useful, that are sort of outside of the red pill dogma. So I try and post about, I would say, like self-improvement and the ability to be self-critical of one's beliefs in the hottest topics plaguing our society today. I think that's probably a good way to describe what it is that I do.
Awesome, man. Well, listen, I want to just ask you on our way out, if people want to learn more about you, where do they go?
Sure, man. So you can find me on pretty much any platform at Anti.Prophet, PH, not profit like capitalism. So Anti.Prophet, or you can find me on Twitter at anti_prophet underscore. So yeah.
And I've got maybe as a final question for you, I've got my follower base is a lot of I would say right-wing conservatives, is people that
Mhm.
would really rather control their own destiny. My crowd tends to be people that they'd like to figure out the game of money so that they have more choices, more options in life. What final advice would you give for my listeners, from you?
Sure. The first thing is learn to manage your finances. If you can't manage your finances, you're not going to be successful in business. So Dave Ramsey is a great resource for that kind of thing. Dave Ramsey is someone that like legit changed my life, just giving me the ability to budget. That's the first thing. The second thing is read some books by Dan Kennedy when it comes to sales copywriting. And I say that for the purpose of it'll be educational to you in the event that you want to start learning how to gain people's attention and how to keep it, which is ultimately all money is. It's how do you get someone's attention and how do you essentially convince them to want to work with you. Uh, Dan Kennedy's books are very, very useful on that front. And on top of that, by reading Dan Kennedy's books, you will understand how other people are using psychology on you in order for you to buy their products. So Dan Kennedy, read anything by Russell Brunson. He's really great when it comes to sort of defining how e-commerce works. And then another really great last book that I would recommend is Influence by Dr. Robert Cialdini. This is going to be something that, again, lets you go even deeper into how to gain that attention and how to move people's attention in the direction that you want in order to be able to make sales online. And from there, to hopefully do so in an ethical way. So those would be my reading suggestions.
I appreciate it, Anti-Prophet. Guys, you've been listening to Kris Krohn, the Anti-Prophet, and we will see you on the next Kris Krohn show.